The morning I found out my husband had been lying to me for years, he'd already been dead for 9 months. I remember the exact moment my phone started vibrating in my purse, right there in the middle of church, while the choir was singing something soft and hopeful that I couldn't quite focus on anymore. It was a Sunday, the kind where people wear their good coats and smile like everything in their lives is exactly where it should be. I was sitting in the same pew I'd sat in every week since Daniel died, hands folded, back straight, trying to look like a woman who had learned how to survive loss with grace. But grief doesn't work like that. Not really. It settles in your bones. It lingers in the quiet places. It shows up in the most inconvenient moments, like when someone says the word forever and your chest tightens before your mind can catch up. My phone buzzed again. I wasn't supposed to check it. Not in church, not during a sermon about healing. But something about it felt wrong, urgent, like the kind of interruption you don't ignore unless you're ready to regret it. I glanced down. Miguel Rivera, the contractor I had hired just 2 days earlier to check out a faint gas smell in the garage behind Daniel's old workspace. My stomach dropped. I slipped the phone out carefully, trying not to draw attention, and read the message. You need to come home now. Don't bring anyone. Just you. I don't know how to explain what that does to a person, seeing words like that out of nowhere. It's like your body understands the danger before your mind does. My hands went cold, my chest tightened, and suddenly I couldn't hear the choir anymore. I stood up before I even realized I was moving. I remember someone reaching for my arm as I stepped into the aisle, whispering my name, but I didn't stop. I walked straight out the side door into the sharp December air, my heels clicking too loud against the pavement, my breath coming faster than it should have. By the time I reached my car, my fingers were already dialing. He picked up on the first ring. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice low, controlled in that way people get when they're trying not to scare you. "You need to get here." "What is it?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded thinner. Fragile. "Is it the gas line? Is it dangerous?" There was a pause. "No," he said finally. "It's not that." Another pause. Longer this time. "I found something behind the wall," he continued. "Something hidden. And I think your husband left it there." Everything inside me went still. Daniel. 9 months gone, and somehow still reaching for me. "What do you mean?" I whispered, but the line had already gone quiet. He had hung up. I sat there for a second, staring at my phone like it might explain itself if I looked hard enough. The sky above me was that dull gray winter color, the kind that makes everything feel smaller, closer, like the world is pressing in. Daniel left something for me. After all this time, and somehow, someone else had already tried to get to it. I didn't know how I knew that yet, but I felt it. Deep in my chest, whatever was waiting behind that wall was never meant to be found this way. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly they had gone numb. The house looked exactly the same as it had every day for the past 9 months. Quiet. Still. Almost too normal. That was the first thing that made my skin crawl. Nothing about this felt normal. Miguel was standing just inside the open garage, one hand resting on his tool belt, the other hanging stiff at his side like he didn't quite know what to do with it. When he saw me, he didn't smile, didn't wave, just nodded once, sharp and serious. "I fixed the gas line," he said as I stepped closer. "Loose fitting. Looked like something had been pushed into it." "Pushed?" I repeated. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned and motioned for me to follow him inside. The air in the garage still carried that faint, sour smell of gas, mixed with motor oil and sawdust. Daniel's smell. I hadn't moved anything in here since he died. I couldn't. It felt like touching it would erase him. Miguel walked straight to the back wall. The heavy metal tool chest Daniel always kept there was no longer flush against it. It had been dragged forward, leaving fresh scrape marks across the concrete floor, cutting through a layer of dust that had taken months to settle. "That wasn't me," I said immediately. "I haven't moved that." "I know," Miguel replied quietly. He crouched down, running his fingers along the scratches. "These are recent, a couple weeks, maybe less." A cold wave moved through me. "Someone moved it?" I asked. He looked up at me then, really looked, like he was measuring how much I could handle. "Yeah," he said, "and they weren't supposed to." He stood and pointed behind the chest. A section of drywall had been cut open, clean, precise, like someone had known exactly where to look. The panel leaned against the wall, exposing a recessed space built between the studs. I stared at it. "I've lived here for 6 years," I said slowly. "I've never seen that." Miguel nodded. "You weren't meant to." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look at the latch." I leaned in. There was a small metal cabinet set into the frame, about 2 feet wide, bolted into place. The latch was simple, almost too simple, but the edges around it were scratched, dented like someone had tried to force it open with a screwdriver. "They tried to pry it," Miguel said. "Didn't realize how it worked." My heart started pounding. "And the gas line?" I asked. He pointed just beneath the cabinet. "When they shoved that tool chest, it shifted the line. Not enough to cause an explosion, but enough to create a slow leak over time. Whoever built this, they designed it that way." I turned to him. "Designed it?" Miguel hesitated. "Like a signal," he said finally. "A way to make sure someone would come looking." My throat went dry. Daniel, he built this, not just to hide something, but to make sure I would find it if someone else tried to get to it first. I stepped closer to the cabinet, my fingers hovering just inches from the latch. "Do you want me to stay?" Miguel asked, "in case this turns into something official." I nodded without taking my eyes off it. "Please." My hand trembled as I reached out. It was such a small thing, just a simple flip mechanism, the kind Daniel would have used on purpose. Easy if you knew how, impossible if you didn't. I lifted it. The latch clicked open. Inside sat a fireproof box, matte black, about the size of a small microwave, and on top of it a label, white tape, printed, perfectly aligned. Daniel's Label Maker. I didn't need to read it to know it was his, but I did anyway. Emergency. For Emily only. My breath caught in my chest. Whatever was inside that box, my husband had died trying to protect it, and someone else had already tried to destroy it. I didn't open the box right away. I just stood there staring at that label, tracing the edges of the letters with my eyes like they might somehow soften if I looked long enough. Daniel had always labeled everything. Drawers, files, storage bins, even the spice rack in the kitchen. It used to drive me a little crazy. I used to tease him about it, call him obsessive. Now it felt like the only piece of him I still had. "Emily," Miguel said gently behind me, "you don't have to do this right now." But I did. Because whoever had tried to break into this, they knew it mattered. And if Daniel had gone through the trouble of hiding it, protecting it, building some kind of mechanism just to make sure I would find it, then whatever was inside was bigger than anything I was ready for. I crouched down slowly and lifted the lid. It wasn't locked. That was the first thing that hit me. Daniel hadn't wanted to keep me out. Inside, everything was arranged with that same careful precision I remembered so well. Stacks of cash, neatly banded. Hundreds mostly, some 50s, a few 20s. I didn't need to count to know it was a lot. My stomach tightened. "What is it?" Miguel asked quietly. "Money," I said. "A lot of it." But it wasn't the money that made my hands start to shake. It was what sat beside it. A thick manila envelope, edges worn like it had been handled more than once, a small black USB drive, and a clear plastic bag labeled in Daniel's handwriting, "Evidence, password protected." My chest tightened. And then I saw the letter. 2 pages, folded neatly, placed right on top like he knew it would be the first thing I reached for. I picked it up carefully, my fingers trembling just enough to make the paper whisper. "Do you want me to step out?" Miguel asked. I nodded. "Please." He didn't say anything else, just gave me a quick look like he wanted to say more but didn't, then walked out, pulling the garage door mostly closed behind him. Not all the way, just enough. I was alone. The silence pressed in around me, thick and heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator inside the house and the distant sound of a car passing on the street. I unfolded the letter. The paper felt heavier than it should have. The first line hit me like something physical. "Emily, if you're reading this, I'm gone." I stopped breathing. I read it again, slower this time, like maybe I'd misunderstood. I hadn't. My vision blurred for a second, but I forced myself to keep going. "Your sister, Rachel, has been stealing from our company for the past 4 years. The words didn't make sense. Not at first. Rachel? My baby sister? I actually laughed. A short, broken sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not. But the handwriting. God, the handwriting. It was his. Every letter clean, deliberate, unmistakably Daniel. I lowered the page for a second, staring at the concrete floor, trying to steady myself, trying to push the words away, but they stayed there, echoing in my head like something that refused to be ignored. Rachel. Stealing. 4 years. I forced myself to look back down, because some part of me already knew this was only the beginning. I had to sit down. My knees just gave out, and I didn't even try to stop it. The cold concrete pressed through my jeans, grounding me in a way nothing else could. I kept staring at that first sentence, like if I looked at it long enough it might rearrange itself into something less devastating. It didn't. My sister, Rachel. Not a stranger, not some employee, not a distant partner. My sister. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep reading. She created a consulting company, Turner Consulting Group, and billed us monthly for services that were never performed. My breath caught. I could see it in my mind instantly. The invoices, the vague descriptions, the numbers that never quite made sense but never seemed big enough at the time to question. Daniel had always handled the financial oversight. I trusted him, and he trusted me, or at least he used to. I read on. Over 4 years, she took $412,890. The number hit me harder than the accusation. $400,000. Gone. Right under our noses. I pressed my hand against my mouth, trying to hold in the sound rising in my throat, something between a sob and a scream. But the next lines were worse. She forged your signature on vendor contracts. She created emails from your account to make it look like you were the one diverting funds. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. No, 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 no. I shook my head. Like that alone could undo what I was reading. She wouldn't do that, I whispered to the empty garage. Rachel wouldn't. But even as I said it, something inside me shifted. Small things, moments I had brushed off, emails I didn't remember sending, contracts Daniel had asked me about, his voice careful, measured, like he was testing the ground beneath his feet. I had laughed it off back then, told him he was overthinking. God. My stomach twisted. He wasn't overthinking. He was trying to figure out if his wife was betraying him, and all along, it was my sister. I squeezed my eyes shut, but it didn't stop the words. I caught her. I gave her 6 months to repay everything. 6 months. I looked at the date in the margin. September 2020. My chest tightened. That was when Daniel had started changing. The late nights, the distance, the way he would sit in this very garage, quiet, thinking, staring at nothing. I thought he was stressed. I thought it was work. I thought it was me. He didn't pay back a single dollar. The words blurred as tears finally spilled over, hot and unstoppable. Instead, she escalated. More forgeries, more lies. My hands were shaking so badly I had to press the paper flat against my leg just to keep reading. By February, I realized she was dangerous. Dangerous. That word echoed louder than anything else. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't a mistake. This was calculated, deliberate, cold. And then came the part that made my blood run cold. I built the cabinet with a mechanism. If someone tried to force it open, it would shift the gas line slightly. Not enough to cause harm, but enough to create a slow leak. Enough to make you call someone to investigate. I froze. My eyes flicked instinctively toward the gas line beneath the cabinet. The scratches. The loose fitting. Miguel's words. Someone had tried to break in. Rachel. She had come here, into my house, into my garage, looking for this. I felt something inside me crack, not break, something deeper, something colder. If you're reading this, either you smelled the gas or she came looking and triggered it herself. I lowered the letter slowly, my hands no longer trembling the same way. They were steadier now. Not because I was calm, but because something else was taking its place. Rachel hadn't just stolen from me. She hadn't just lied. She had tried to destroy me. And when that didn't work, she came back to erase the evidence. I looked at the box again. The cash. The USB. The envelope. Everything Daniel had left behind. Everything he had built. Everything he had died before he could finish. I swallowed hard, my jaw tightening. "Okay," I whispered. My voice low, steady in a way it hadn't been before. "Okay, Daniel." I reached for the rest of the letter. "Tell me everything." I wiped my face with the back of my hand and forced myself to keep reading. I was supposed to meet with attorney Michael Grayson on March 1st to file charges. My breath caught. March 1st. Daniel died on February 28th. One day, one single day. I pressed the paper harder into my palm, the edges digging into my skin. He had been that close to ending it, that close to protecting me. And instead, he died carrying it alone. A wave of guilt hit me so hard I had to lean forward, my forehead almost touching the concrete floor. How did I not see it? How did I not ask the right questions? He had been sitting across from me every night, eating dinner, asking me about my day, while knowing my sister was stealing from us and trying to frame me, and I had no idea. I forced myself upright again, breathing uneven. "Finish this for us." The words sat at the bottom of the page, heavier than anything else. Not just a request, a responsibility, a burden he couldn't carry anymore. I swallowed and reached for the manila envelope. If I was going to do this, I needed to understand everything. The envelope was thick, stuffed with papers. When I opened it, a stack of bank statements slid out onto the floor, fanning out like evidence in a crime scene. Every page marked. Yellow highlighter across specific transactions, the same name repeating over and over again, Turner Consulting Group. I picked up the first statement, my eyes scanning the lines. January 2018, $7,900. Consulting services, February, $8,200. March, $11,400. Every month. The amounts changed, but the pattern didn't. My chest tightened as I flipped through page after page. 48 months, 4 years. The final page had Daniel's handwriting in red ink, underlined twice. Total, $412,890. I stared at the number until it stopped feeling real. Then I reached for the USB drive. Small, black, ordinary, except it wasn't. Because everything Daniel couldn't say out loud, everything he couldn't prove in time, was inside this. I stood slowly, my legs stiff, and carried everything into the house, setting it all down on the kitchen table like something fragile. The house felt different now, quieter, heavier, like it knew. I sat down, opened my laptop, and plugged in the USB. The screen flickered. A password prompt appeared instantly. Enter password. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Something only we know, our most private pain. I exhaled slowly. Okay, think. I typed our wedding date, June 14th, 2017. Enter, access denied. My jaw tightened. I tried his birthday, March 15th. Denied. Mine, March 3rd. Denied. The house address, the company name. Every variation I could think of. Denied, denied, denied. Minutes turned into hours. The light outside faded, the kitchen growing darker until the only glow came from the laptop screen. I didn't turn on the lights, didn't move, didn't stop. By the time the clock on the oven read 12:47 in the morning, I had tried everything that made sense, everything that should have worked, and nothing did. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen, my eyes burning. Our most private pain, not joy, not love, pain. Something no one else knew. I closed my eyes, letting the silence settle around me. There was only one thing Daniel and I had ever called that. Only one thing we never spoke about. Not with friends, not with family, not even with Rachel. My breath caught as the memory surfaced, sharp and unavoidable. I sat up slowly, my hands suddenly still. No, I whispered, but I already knew. Because there was only one answer. And if I was right, then whatever was on that drive was about to change everything. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, suddenly heavier than they had any right to be. There was only one thing Daniel and I had buried so deeply we never let it touch the surface of our everyday lives. Only one thing we never said out loud unless we absolutely had to. Our daughter. I swallowed hard, my throat tightening as the memory pushed forward whether I wanted it to or not. The hospital room, the silence, the way Daniel had held my hand so tightly I thought my bones might break, like if he let go, everything would fall apart. We never talked about it after that, not really. We carried it quietly like something sacred and broken. My God, I whispered. My hands were shaking again, but this time it felt different. Not fear, recognition. I typed slowly. Rowan 2011. Each letter deliberate. Each number final. I closed my eyes as I pressed enter. For a second, nothing happened. Then the screen shifted. A folder appeared. My heart stopped. I opened my eyes fully, staring at it like it might disappear if I blinked. Evidence. Rachel Turner, fraud. The words hit me like a wave. I clicked. The folder expanded instantly. Dozens of files, organized, labeled, precise. Just like Daniel, subfolders lined up in clean rows. Invoices, emails, accounting records, forgeries, casino statements, forensic reports, and one more, video testimony. My breath caught. Daniel? I whispered. I clicked into the first folder. Invoices. PDF files filled the screen. I opened one. Professional formatting, clean layout, company letterhead, Turner Consulting Group. It looked legitimate, convincing. If I didn't know better, I would have believed it. But then I checked the file details. Author, Rachel Turner. Computer, Rachel PC. Created the same day it was billed. I felt something cold settle into my chest. She hadn't even tried that hard to hide it, because she never thought anyone would look. I clicked through more files. Same pattern, same machine, same author, every single time. I moved to the email folder, chains of messages between vendors and Rachel, detailed, specific, professional. Except they weren't real. A forensic report sat at the top. I opened it. Every email traced back to the same IP address. Her home. She had created entire conversations with herself, pretended to be contractors, pretended to provide services, built an entire illusion. I leaned back slightly, my pulse pounding in my ears. This wasn't panic, I said out loud, my voice low. This was a system, years of it, planned, maintained, perfected. I clicked into the accounting folder, spreadsheets, transaction logs, clean lines connecting every transfer, company account to consulting account to personal account, her personal account, ending in 734, every payment, every withdrawal, mapped, proven, undeniable. My hands felt numb as I moved to the next folder, forgeries. I hesitated, then clicked. 14 documents appeared, side-by-side comparisons. On the left, my real signature. On the right, something that looked like it. Close enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking carefully, but wrong, subtly, deliberately. A report sat beside them. 87% probability of forgery, digital manipulation, copy and paste techniques. I stared at my own name on those documents, my stomach turning. She hadn't just stolen money. She had stolen me, my identity, my credibility, my life. I closed the folder, my breathing uneven now. There was only one thing left: video testimony. My hand hovered over the mouse. I didn't know if I was ready to see him, to hear his voice again, to watch him, knowing what he was carrying. But I also knew I couldn't stop now. Not when I was this close. I clicked. The screen flickered. And then Daniel appeared, sitting in the garage, right where I had been standing just hours ago, the same workbench behind him, the same quiet space, except now he was looking directly into the camera, into me. And suddenly, it felt like he had been waiting for this moment all along. I couldn't breathe when he started speaking. "My name is Daniel Turner," he said, his voice calm, steady, exactly the way I remembered. Today is February 20th, 2021. I pressed my hand against my mouth, trying to hold myself together as I watched him. He looked tired. Not just physically, but something deeper. The kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying something too heavy for too long. "If you're watching this," he continued, "then I didn't make it to the meeting with Michael Grayson." My chest tightened. He knew. Some part of him had known. Rachel Turner has embezzled $412,890 from our company over the past 4 years through a fraudulent consulting business. Hearing it out loud made it real in a way nothing else had. Not the letter, not the files. His voice didn't shake, not once. She also attempted to frame my wife, Emily, by forging her signature on multiple documents and creating falsified email correspondence to suggest she was responsible. My vision blurred, but I didn't look away. She tried to make me believe Emily was stealing from me. His eyes shifted slightly just for a moment, like he was remembering it. I checked the server logs. The emails originated from Rachel's home network, not Emily's. A pause. I never believed it. That broke me. I let out a sharp breath, tears spilling over again as my shoulders shook. Of course he didn't. Of course he knew me. And still, he carried the weight of proving it. "I confronted Rachel in September 2020, he went on. She admitted to everything. Gambling debts, financial losses. She said she panicked." His jaw tightened slightly. "I gave her 6 months to repay the money and seek treatment. 6 months." I closed my eyes for a second. He had given her a chance. Because of me. "Why didn't I go to the police immediately?" he said, almost like he was answering a question I hadn't asked yet. "Because Emily loves her sister." My breath caught again. I was trying to protect her from that kind of betrayal. The words hit harder than anything else. He wasn't protecting Rachel. He was protecting me. I thought if Rachel fixed it quietly, Emily would never have to know. His voice dropped slightly. I was wrong. The room felt too small, too heavy. Rachel did not repay the money. She escalated. More forgeries, more attempts to manipulate records. His expression hardened in a way I had never seen before. Rachel Turner is not acting out of desperation. She's acting with intent. Silence filled the space for a second. Then he leaned forward slightly. If anything prevents me from filing charges, Emily, you need to finish this. My chest tightened so sharply it almost hurt. Everything you need is on this drive. His eyes softened, and for just a second, he looked like himself again. Not the man carrying secrets. Not the man under pressure, just Daniel. I love you, he said quietly. The screen froze. The video ended, and the silence that followed was unbearable. I sat there staring at the blank screen, my reflection faintly visible where his face had been just seconds before. He had trusted me. With everything. With the truth. With the ending. My hand slowly curled into fists on the table. Rachel hadn't just stolen money. She had taken his last months, turned them into something heavy and dark and isolating. She had walked into my life and tried to erase me, to replace me, to destroy me. And she almost did, but she didn't count on him, and she didn't count on this. I wiped my face slowly, my breathing steadying in a way that felt unfamiliar, not calm, not peace, something sharper, something focused. I reached for my phone, my fingers no longer shaking, because now I knew exactly what I had, and more importantly, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I didn't call Rachel, not that night, not the next morning either. Every instinct in me wanted to confront her, to hear her voice crack, to force her to look me in the eye and explain how she could do something like this. But Daniel's words echoed in my head, steady and clear. Finish this, not react, not explode. Finish it. I needed to be smarter than she was. So I called someone else. Michael Grayson's office, a calm female voice answered. My grip tightened on the phone. My name is Emily Turner. My husband, Daniel Turner. He had an appointment scheduled before he passed. There was a pause, papers shifting faintly on the other end. Yes, Mrs. Turner, she said, her tone softening. We remember. I'm very sorry for your loss. I found what he was going to bring, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Everything. Another pause. Longer this time. Can you come in? She asked. I'll be there this afternoon. I hung up and sat there for a moment, staring at the kitchen table covered in evidence. The USB, the statements, the letter, all of it laid out like a map of something I could no longer pretend didn't exist. Rachel thought she still had time. She thought she could control this. She thought I was still the version of me who trusted her. She was wrong. The law office sat on a quiet street downtown, the kind of place you only noticed if you were looking for it. Brick exterior, polished brass plaque, understated in a way that felt intentional. Inside, everything was quiet. Carpeted floors, muted voices, the faint smell of paper and coffee. Michael Grayson met me himself. Mid-50s, composed, the kind of man who had seen everything and reacted to nothing. Mrs. Turner, he said, shaking my hand. Daniel spoke highly of you. That almost undid me. But I held it together. I found what he was going to bring you, I said, setting the box down on the conference table. He didn't rush, didn't react. He just opened it and started going through everything, one piece at a time. The letter first, then the statements, then the USB. 40 minutes passed in silence, broken only by the occasional turn of a page or the soft click of a mouse. I watched his face carefully, looking for doubt, for hesitation. There wasn't any. When he finally leaned back, his expression had shifted, not surprised, not shocked, certain. This is one of the most complete fraud cases I've seen built outside of a formal investigation, he said. My chest tightened slightly. He knew what he was doing, I said quietly. Yes, Michael replied. He did. He folded his hands, looking at me directly. Without this, he tapped the USB lightly. You would have a difficult case. Circumstantial evidence, competing narratives. Your sister could argue legitimacy. I nodded slowly. I figured, but with this, he exhaled softly. This is prosecutable. Embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, forgery, multiple counts. Serious exposure. How serious? I asked. He didn't hesitate. 8 to 12 years. Potentially more if federal charges come into play. The words landed heavier than I expected. Not satisfying, not relieving. Just final. She tried to destroy me, I said, my voice low. Michael nodded once. And now you have the means to stop her. I pulled my phone from my bag and slid it across the table. There's something else, I said. He picked it up, reading the message I had received earlier that morning. Stop digging through company records. You won't like what you find. He looked up at me. When did you receive this? Less than an hour ago. After anyone knew you were looking? I thought about it. The timing. The break in attempt. Rachel's sudden silence over the past few weeks. She knows, I said. Michael nodded slowly. Then we're on a clock. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? It means she may try to destroy anything she still has access to, he said. Financial records, devices, accounts. And if she feels cornered, he let the sentence hang. She could get reckless. I leaned forward slightly. What do we do? He closed the folder and looked at me, his voice calm but firm. We move first. And for the first time since I found the box, I felt like I wasn't reacting anymore. I was stepping into something deliberate, something controlled, something Daniel had already started. And now, I was about to finish it. 3 days later, I was sitting across from Rachel, watching her smile like nothing had happened. We were in a small cafe just off Main Street, the kind of place we used to meet for brunch on Sundays. Same corner table, same soft music, same smell of coffee and warm bread, except nothing felt the same anymore. You look better, she said, stirring her latte, her voice light, almost relieved. I was starting to worry about you. I held her gaze, forcing myself to mirror that calm. I've been busy, I said. That's good, she nodded, leaning back slightly. Staying busy helps. I watched her carefully. Her posture was relaxed, controlled. Her clothes were immaculate, her hair styled perfectly. Nothing about her suggested panic. If I didn't know the truth, I would have believed her. I've been going through Daniel's files, I said casually. There it was, a flicker, small, fast. But I saw it. Oh, she said too quickly. That must be overwhelming. It is, I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. There's a lot of financial stuff, contracts, invoices. Her fingers tightened slightly around her cup. You should be careful with that, she said. Some of it can be confusing if you don't know what you're looking at. I almost smiled. There it was. Control. She wanted to guide the narrative before I understood it. I was thinking maybe you could help me, I said. Her shoulders relaxed, just a fraction. Of course, she said warmly. You know I would do anything for you. Anything. The word echoed in my head like something hollow. I came across some payments to Turner Consulting Group, I continued, watching her closely. Do you remember what kind of work you were doing for us? She didn't hesitate. Vendor coordination. Mostly, she said smoothly, connecting contractors, negotiating rates, that kind of thing. Rehearsed, Clean. Convincing. Did you ever go out to the properties? I asked. Sometimes, she shrugged. Not often. Why? I set my cup down slowly. No reason, I said. Just trying to understand everything. She nodded, but I could see it now. The tension. The calculation behind her eyes. She was measuring every word. Honestly, she added, leaning forward slightly, lowering her voice, if you find anything that doesn't make sense, you should come to me before jumping to conclusions. Daniel, he had a tendency to overanalyze things. I felt something cold settle into my chest. He had a tendency to overanalyze. That's how she was going to play it. Make him look paranoid. Make me look confused. I nodded slowly, like I was considering it. That makes sense, I said. We sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the cafe filling the space between us. Then I shifted. Something strange happened at the house last week, I said. Her eyes flicked up instantly. Oh? There was a gas leak in the garage, I continued. The contractor said it looked like something had been moved. Recently. Her hand froze for just a second. Then she forced it to move again, lifting her cup. That's scary, she said. Old houses, things shift. Maybe, I said, but he also mentioned marks on a cabinet, like someone tried to pry it open. That did it. Her smile tightened. Barely, but enough. Do you think someone broke in? She asked. I don't know, I replied. There wasn't any forced entry. We both knew what that meant. Someone with access. Someone who knew the house. Someone who knew where to look. She set her cup down carefully. You should probably install security cameras, she said quickly, just to be safe. I nodded. I was thinking the same thing. We finished our coffee after that, the conversation drifting into safer territory. Holidays, work, things that didn't matter. But everything that mattered had already been said. When we stood up, she hugged me. Tight. Familiar. Fake. I miss you, she whispered. I didn't answer. I just pulled back and smiled, because now I knew. She had been in my house. She had tried to find what Daniel left behind, and now she was trying to figure out how much I knew. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed in my hand. A message from an unknown number. Stop digging. You're making a mistake. I stared at the screen, my pulse steady. Not fear, not anymore, because now I had confirmation. Rachel wasn't just guilty, she was scared. And that meant we were getting close. The meeting was set for Friday morning at 10, and by the time I walked into Michael Grayson's conference room, everything was already in place. The folders were lined up in perfect order: financial records, email forensics, forgery analysis. The USB drive sat in the center like the final piece of something that had taken years to build. Michael stood beside the table, calm, composed, ready. I took my seat and folded my hands together, feeling something settle inside me. Not anger, not grief. Control. The door opened exactly on time. Rachel walked in first, dressed in navy and cream, polished, composed, her chin slightly raised like she was stepping into a conversation she still believed she could manage. Behind her was her attorney, briefcase in hand, expression already tense. Her eyes found mine immediately. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. "Emily," she said softly, "we don't have to do this like this." Michael didn't let her continue. "We absolutely do," he said evenly. "Please, have a seat." They sat across from us. The room felt smaller now, tighter. Michael didn't waste time. "Before any discussion of terms," he said, opening the first binder, "we're going to walk through the evidence." Rachel shifted slightly in her chair. "Michael, I think it would be more productive if we—" "No," he cut in calmly. "You'll want to see this." He began with the invoices, one after another, laid out across the table. Dates, Amounts, signatures, patterns. Then the metadata. Her name, her computer, creation timestamps. Her attorney leaned forward, flipping through pages faster now. Rachel's hands were still, but I could see the tension creeping in. Next came the emails, chains printed and highlighted, followed by the forensic report, IP address, her home network. Every single message traced back to her. "No," she said quietly. Michael didn't stop. He moved to the accounting records. Transfers mapped cleanly. Company to shell account to her personal account, withdrawals, patterns, intent. By the time he opened the forgery binder, her attorney had stopped flipping pages. He was just staring. 14 signatures, side-by-side comparisons, expert analysis, 87% probability of forgery. Rachel's breathing changed, faster now, less controlled. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, her voice thinner. "I can explain. You can't," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time, and I knew she saw it. I wasn't the same person she had manipulated. I wasn't guessing anymore. I knew. Michael dimmed the lights. The screen came to life. Daniel. His voice filled the room again, steady, undeniable. Every word landed like truth carved into stone. By the time the video ended, Rachel was crying, not quietly, not controlled. The kind of crying that comes when there's nothing left to hold on to. Her attorney leaned in, whispering to her urgently. Then he looked up. "We're prepared to discuss settlement," he said. Just like that. No denial, no argument. Michael outlined the terms. Full restitution, asset transfer, immediate resignation, strict conditions, no room to negotiate. Rachel nodded before her attorney could even finish reviewing it. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "I'll sign." She didn't look at me when she said it. Not once. The papers were placed in front of her. Her hand shook as she signed each page. Slowly, carefully, like she understood every line was the end of something she could never rebuild. When it was done, she stood, still not looking at me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't respond, because sorry wasn't enough. It never would be. She walked out of that room without turning back, and just like that, it was over. Not with a scream, not with a fight, with truth. Clean, final, unavoidable. I stepped outside into the cold air, taking a slow breath, feeling something lift off my chest for the first time in months. Daniel had started this. I finished it. And for the first time since he was gone, I felt like I could finally breathe again. If this story stayed with you, take a second to like, subscribe, and drop 3 words in the comments that describe how you feel right now.